share sharp betting information.
All right. Welcome back to podcast 47-18, The Flatlands. And you'll know why it's called The Flatlands in a little bit. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at The Public Dog, or you can tweet us at The Odds Breakers. This episode is sponsored by uwager.eu for a 50% bonus. Please visit uwager.eu and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. If you'd like to help us out, we would like to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become an Oddsbreakers member by clicking on Patreon subscriber. For $12.99 a month, you become a member and you get our picks before the line moves when we make the picks, as well as our podcast a little bit early. So please do that. And if nothing else, visit theoddsbreakers.com for our free picks newsletter from our handicappers. So, a lot to recap. Lots and lots of big teams going down this week. We'll quick start with Appalachian State versus Arkansas State. Sharps were on the wrong side of this. Came in on Arkansas State, but App State looks so legit. You know, they lost their running back, Jalen Moore, unfortunately, but they destroyed this spread. I think it finished around 14 or so. Definitely going to be watching their lines on the next couple games here, but they're a very legit team, Appalachian State, top 20, and they lost a lot of people coming into this year. We were too low on them. I had to move them up in my power ratings, so Appalachian State is just trucking along here in the Sun Belt. Texas Tech versus TCU. Now, this was another game the general public won on. Go public! You know, it's funny. I'm actually not a fan of a sharp better or the publics. Lots of podcasts, they talk a little bit of smack about, you know, the public this and the public that. And it's kind of demeaning, to be honest with you. Now, at the same time, and as a general rule, you know, public bettors win 45 to 50% of the time, and sharp bettors win 50% to 56% or something like that. That's about the average, but there's plenty of sharp bettors that have bad seasons. But I just don't like how it's demeaning because, to be honest with you, in tons of situations, the public bettor is correct on a side. And sometimes people try to get too contrarian. I'm actually a person that is against the books. I'm happy if there's 100% of the tickets are on the winning side and 100% of the money is on the winning side. So to be completely honest with you, I am not a fan of hating on the public bettor. I just want to supply information. And if a sharp bettor's on something, I want to tell people. It doesn't always mean it's the right side. It's just, it means that they like it for some reason, and you can do some more research into that. And 50 to 53% of the time, they're right, I suppose. Maybe a little bit more. But in general, you can see in the NFL all these line moves. And many times they're on the wrong side of it. As a matter of fact, all the line moves last week, the sharp side was the wrong side. I mean, look at Tennessee. Look at Cleveland. You know, there's just a lot of moves that are incorrect. Hell, the Bears went from -3 to -7, and they lost outright. So there you go. Air Force versus San Diego State. Well, the 20% theory worked for us. You know, if your spread is over 20% of the total, then take the dog. To be honest with you, I think Air Force might have won that game without that block punt TV that they gave up to San Diego State. So it was nice to be on the right side of that. There's a big trend that was Air Force was 0-7 against the spread after the Navy game. So I'm glad they beat that trend. I'm not much of a trend bettor. I follow them because sometimes there's validity to it if I think about it. But most of the times trends are made because of spots. Like going after a rivalry game, they are less likely to win. Well, you should know that as a spot anyway because it's called a letdown spot. Missouri versus Bama was a great game. Bama is now 7-0 in the first half betting. Tua got banged up a bit. And he's going to play the next game. He's probable, against Tennessee. But that was a little bit of a scare for them. And Tua's just been so great. Of course, Jalen Hurts is good. But now, people lost some faith in Jalen Hurts. I think it was just because that Georgia game, ever since then. So there's some worry, but it's fine. Tua is fine. But, I don't expect them to, completely let him loose and against Tennessee this game. We'll kind of see what happens. But he got banged up a little bit. Let's talk about my Badgers underperforming like everybody predicted. Like I said, my number was 7.5. I took a super small money line bet on the Badgers because I had to, but lost it. Personal bet, didn't give it out. It was obvious that they were overpowered in this game. Now, I thought that momentum turning call, roughing the long snapper, was absolutely pathetic. And this is why you need accountability of the referees. It sucks to be on the wrong side of it. But to be honest with you, Michigan still would have won by 10 points, at least. Even if they punted there, they ended up scoring there. But if Michigan punted there, they still would have beat Wisconsin by 10 because Wisconsin's that devastated on defense. They're that uncreative on offense, one-dimensional. Paul Chryst was a creative coach, but I haven't seen no scheming, no game planning. Hornibrook is a dead duck up there. He's lost his confidence. He's not good anymore. He's not. I don't know what's going on here. I'd like to see a little bit of Jack Cohn myself. But this season's pretty much done for the playoff. Any playoff hopes, of course. And some people say you shouldn't hope on the playoffs. Well, you do when you're a top 10 team. I don't care who you are. And we're coming into the season, that is. And, it's much better to be on the other side like Texas is, like Florida, LSU. You come into the season expecting not to be that good, and then you're way better. It's a lot easier to eat a loss. But, Wisconsin is probably a top 18 type team, top 15 team. They're very injured, and they could lose. They might lose 2 more games here in the regular season. Hope you didn't take their over on the season win total is what I'm trying to say. Michigan State beat Penn State, and that game went to the end. This is another one where they just missed Joe Moorhead that much. Franklin, I don't know if he didn't game plan that correctly. I watched parts of this game. I mean, what a huge upset for Michigan State. If you're looking at the team stats here, I believe that Michigan State was actually no, they outgained them by about 20 yards. So Michigan State did do pretty well. 295 yards passing to Penn State's 192, and Penn State got them in rushing by 205 to 123. That's kind of a weird stat. You think that Penn State would be the better throwing team, but it's 2 turnover apiece, and Michigan State was just able to get that last possession to do it. Maybe if they had more, Penn State had more time, but Penn State's now out of the mix as well, which is kind of demoralizing for a team when you're out of the mix with high expectations. Georgia versus LSU. Wow. LSU beat the heck out of them. And I'm mad at myself for not taking the LSU side. I was thinking about taking the LSU. It's hard to bet against Georgia. I heard some stupid trend that LSU's only 50% when they win as a dog during the day, but it's 70% at night. And this was a day game. And I listened to a trend, which was stupid of me. Well, it just kept me off the bet. It's not like I bet the other side, but that's one of the ones I regret not taking. LSU Tigers they're a very legit team. That Florida game, obviously, the week before was a lot closer. And Florida's awesome this year. I'm happy I have that Florida SEC ticket. I think it's going to be up to the Florida-Georgia game for that one. So, we'll see what happens there. As far as my numbers, or the numbers on the Florida game. I'm actually looking for them right now. Or sorry, not the Florida game, the LSU game. Jake Fromm had 209 yards and a TD. Wasn't bad. Joe Burrow had 200 yards, no TDs, but they had 275 yards rushing. They ran all over Georgia. 275. Man, that's just some serious rushing stats right there. And I think that's where they beat them. They controlled the game. Georgia could not stop them. They were worried a little bit more about Joe Burrow and went wrong. Jake Fromm threw 2 picks. That didn't go well. Now there's a quarterback controversy most likely brewing in Georgia. Next, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh. Another game I'm pissed at myself. This game had Pittsburgh all over it with plus 21.5 points I could have snagged before the game. I lost to Notre Dame a few times when I thought they were overvalued, especially that Virginia Tech game, and it made me stay off them against Pittsburgh at home. But no, Pittsburgh was the right side. And hard to tell with Pittsburgh. You see Pittsburgh get demolished by Central Florida, and then, they get up for this Notre Dame game, and they look very legit. Pittsburgh's improved. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of teams that have improved. Arkansas is one of them. Tennessee beat Auburn. They're improved. Teams improve, and that's what people don't really factor into their handicaps a lot. They just think they're the same team that comes into this year decimated from the losing players the year before, but the kids get better. Things even out. Baylor versus Texas. I was on Baylor because I looked at the Texas letdown spot, and Baylor had a shot at winning this game and didn't. They had a shot at the end to get to the end zone, and they would have won if they did. But we took Baylor plus 14 as a premium play. I'm glad I did because this was an obvious letdown spot for the Texas. One I didn't chicken out of. Texas is not a good, big favor, double-digit point team. They're just not built like that. Oklahoma's a great double-digit favorite team. They blow away teams. UCF's a great double-digit team because they can blow out teams, And Memphis and, those types of teams. But, not Texas. They're happy to win the way they are. Florida, Vandy. Vandy's winning this game, and that went really bad for our over-under because, Vandy's up 21 to 13. It was 21 to 7 actually, or 21 to 6 until then the half. Florida scored at the end, a couple huge plays, and right when Vandy went up, I'm like, oh geez, there goes that total. You wanted Florida to score first and control that game, so it went over that 50.5 or 51. So wrong side of that one. Texas A&M versus South Carolina. This was also a really close game. Texas A&M at the end was able to get the kick, and thank God this was our biggest play last week. We were not 9-8 last week, by the way, which ain't great, but it's treading water. But Texas A&M took care of business, and that's how I kind of had my power rings, and that's how I had this game handicapped. You thought they were going to beat them by a lot more when they're up 13-0. And then 16 points South Carolina scores in the third quarter. So that's where it got really dicey. And you're like, uh-oh. And then, Texas A&M ended up coming through. A lot of people were on Colorado as a dog at USC plus 7.5. Wow, did that not turn out? As a matter of fact, Colorado scored most of their points in the fourth quarter. So that didn't go well for them. Another big upset, Miami against Virginia. I wanted to get on Virginia and didn't, and then what happens? Another letdown for me. Wish I would have. Central Florida at Memphis. Now, I watched this game. It was raining its ass off, but Central Florida was able to come through and get a huge turnover towards the end. Memphis could not score in the second half, but this downpour completely affected the game. We made our bet earlier in the week. That was a huge. Actually,